A war memorial, or any important memorial, is a religious artifact par excellence. It's something that society has thought about in response to something important. So if you look at war memorials in any country, that gives you an idea of what has happened in that country, something important that's happened, and people have had to do some serious thinking about why did this trauma called war, why did this happen? Are there any lessons? So you get a whole bunch of different war memorials. There we go. War memorials have been around forever. The earliest memorial that we could find, and is still there, is in the pass of Thermopylae. You've all heard of Thermopylae? It's where the 300 Spartans died trying to defend their country. So there's a very simple memorial in the ground there. So that's 2,500 years old. Battlefield memorials have always honored the soldiers. In the 19th century, with the rise of nationalism, the rise of nation states, then you started getting memorials in the capital city, Paris, London, Washington, Berlin, honoring great leaders, not just the soldiers. But now war has moved from the battlefield to everywhere, from soldiers to everyone. This is a process that has taken place over the past 100 years or so. So that recent memorials in nations' capitals have become memorials that honored everyone. So we're living now in what I call the age of democratic memorials. And a great memorial, I'll give you, there's one great memorial in here. You'll know which one it is pretty quick. Articulate the meaning and purpose beneath the tragedy. So that a simple battlefield memorial is often something like, these brave men died here. Done. Okay? No one's going to contest this. Okay? Something important happened here. After the war, we honor the dead of whatever side. We're happy to go to wreath-laying ceremonies as Rotarians. That's a wonderful project. If you're traveling abroad, whatever country you're in, that'd make a nice little project to show that you're honoring the sacrifice that society has made, whatever it is. A truly great memorial in a nation's capital, that then tries to articulate, now, why did this happen? Is there a lesson here? What is the purpose we're deriving from this? So let's begin. Wars are contested. Wars are wonderful. Wars are horrible. They bring out the best in people. They bring out the worst. Okay? People argue about them. People fight about the meaning of them while they're going on. So this is how our British cousins remember the Battle of Waterloo. That's the charge of the Scots Greys. Doesn't that look like fun? Wouldn't you want to just do that? Well, for 5 minutes, it was fun, until the cannons started going off and so on. It was just enormous fun. And this is the aftermath. So this is early 19th century. There's no photographs. So this is the aftermath of a battle in the Napoleonic era. And you can see surgeons. How does this pointer work? There we go. There's a surgeon. Someone's being hauled off the battlefield. I mean, it's a mess. It's carnage. But my God, look at these pretty uniforms. It's all in color, and the real blood and guts and gore in this painting it's not really there. It comes to, this is the Civil War. Okay, this is a Matthew Brady photograph, aftermath of the Battle of Antietam. Okay, people have always known war is awful. Okay, but now it becomes really obvious. Then you get to World War I, and you get this carnage on a daily basis. It was a mess. In World War II, we have this iconic photograph. Life magazine, that's the battleship Arizona, that's Pearl Harbor. And this was on every newsstand in every home in America within a week after it happened. So there's an immediacy to it. Brings war home. And then the Vietnam War was the war on television, brought to our living rooms. And then this event recently, we're in the modern era. You could watch this as it was happening. So see how different, how war has changed just in 200 years. I mean, The nature of war has changed, and the nature we depict war, the way we talk about it, the way we represent it, the way we communicate about it to one another has changed rather drastically. Okay, moving right along here, back to Napoleon. Now, doesn't the war look like fun if you get to wear a uniform like this and so on? So Napoleon, in his time, was very popular in France, parts of Europe. In Italy, he was considered a native son. His first language was Italian. He was very popular in Italy. He was not popular in Spain. This is a famous anti-propaganda painting by Goya, and these are a bunch of French soldiers on the right. Oops, sorry. French soldiers on the right here, Spanish civilians on the left. And so that was Napoleon's undoing, was trying to subdue the Spanish, because the Spanish got help from the English. The English sent a crack general and some troops there, the Duke of Wellington. So Wellington beat Napoleon's generals in Spain, and then he beat Napoleon himself at the Battle of Waterloo. So that deserves a memorial. All right, there's the British Lion up there. That's where the British lines were. And the French got a memorial. These are all soldiers' memorials. They're all really very simple. Let's just say, these brave men died here. That's basically all they say. And the Prussians, don't forget the Prussians were the key to victory that afternoon. And so that's in Gothic script. It's a beautiful piece. Now, here is a typical war memorial in a nation's capital. This is outside of Edinburgh. Now, does something look a little funny about this? Does it look a little unfinished, maybe? Well, it was unfinished. He couldn't raise the money for it. Okay, so that is why memorials go up on the battlefield, erected by the soldiers, surviving soldiers. And if you went to the public in 1820, 1830, 1840 and said, let's raise some tax money to put up a big memorial in London or Edinburgh or somewhere, well, taxpayers weren't that thrilled about it. But the French started off. This is Marshal Ney, one of Napoleon's great generals. This is a statue written about by Hemingway in A Movable Feast. So it's a famous statue in downtown Paris. There's Napoleon himself in Paris. There's Napoleon's final resting place. He always did things in style. Everything in style for Napoleon. This is the first place Hitler went when he arrived in Paris after the German army won. He went there and he stood gazing at it for over an hour. Long time. At this building, that's the Hôtel des Invalides. So it's hard to explain that sort of building in France. It's both an old soldier's home and Arlington National Cemetery all rolled into one big building. And there's Admiral Nelson at Trafalgar Square, looking towards the Westminster Parliament. And here, this is a typical war memorial in the early 19th century. Does anyone recognize this?
Washington Monument.
It's the Washington Monument.
Before they changed the form.
Yeah, it went up in the 1840s and there it stopped because they couldn't raise money. Congress wouldn't vote it. And it's hard to imagine this sort of frugality. I mean, the percentage of the national budget it would have required to finish that in 1845, it couldn't have been, the tiniest fraction, but they wouldn't do it. They were too busy fighting over, other stuff. And there it is today. It's a beautiful piece. An obelisk is a shaft of sunlight. It's an ancient Egyptian idea. And if you're talking about a big important memorial, the most important thing about it is that the architecture of the memorial should embody the virtues of the person memorialized. So with this really works pretty well. I mean, Washington didn't say much. When he did, it counted. He led by example. He was a tall, quiet, confident man, and he gets a memorial that fits his personality just perfectly. And then in the 1880s, finally money starts to come, and soldiers themselves, the veterans, started raising funds to memorialize their generals. So this is General Sherman, just south of the Treasury Department. It's near the White House in Washington. So there he is. It's erected by his soldiers. And this is General Thomas, major Civil War general. I put that in here because he died, his last command was at the Presidio. He was in charge of the Presidio and died there and is buried there. But that statue is in Thomas Circle in Washington, D.C. And then we get the classic. And it took 60 years to come up with this, and a lot of fighting. It was not an easy thing to get done. Very powerful Speaker of the House, Joe Cannon of Illinois, said, "I will not erect a monument to Lincoln in that goddamn swamp." But later he said, "I've won a lot of battles here in Washington, and I've lost a lot of battles. One battle I'm glad I lost was this one," because he finally liked it. Now, what he means by the swamp is that this piece of land there was underwater. The western half of the National Mall was underwater until the 1880s. So we get this thing, and it's marvelous. I mean, we are absolutely lucky to have this. As this is the high altar this is ground zero of the United States. If you wanted to take a visitor to one place in the United States and spend an hour to learn about America, you couldn't do better than this. Oh, right. Now look at his hands. Fist. You got a fist on this side and an open hand on the other side. And now look at the eagle. See the olive branch in one hand and the arrows in the other hand. Okay, this is a good symbol of any country and any person. It's a principle we all have to observe. Some people are friends, you extend the hand of friendship. Other people, you got to put up a boundary. This is just life on this earth. So there's the fist, there's the arrows, there's General Grant. And now we have a nice symbol of the open hand, the olive branch. That's the United States Institute of Peace. It's a new building that's gone up near the Lincoln Memorial. So it's appropriate. Whether you think there should be national funding for an Institute of Peace or not, it's a nice building. This up here is supposed to be, oh God, I keep hitting the wrong button. That's dove's wings. If you see it from the air, it's quite beautiful. All right, now, moving along. World War I changes everything. This is a typical English war memorial for World War I. There's nothing heroic here. It's just saying how horrible the whole business was. So that's somewhere in London. And I think in that battle, the Battle of Ypres, 70,000 men died in like 3 days. And that's how World War I went, day after day. So where are the memorials? Where are the statues of World War I generals? Well, there aren't any, okay, because there weren't any generals that deserved a statue. We're lucky. We have a statue of Pershing. I mean, Pershing deserves his statue. It's in Washington. It's unassuming. You got to look for it, but it's there. He was a pretty good general, but the other guys were just butchers. Okay. So this is a place called Deep Fall. It means deep valley. It's not a very deep valley, and that's an enormous piece of work because of the horrible losses. And each man who died there is listed on panels. Then the British, when they decided to make a World War I memorial in downtown London, they just came up with this. It's really very simple. The glorious dead. That's the only inscription on it. I think World War I, but they list the wars. But that's it, real simple, and it's decorated with flags. William and Kate stopped there after their wedding. They drove by and stopped and laid a wreath, I think. Very simple. After World War I, there's really nothing eloquent to say. And then we came up with this also after World War I. So did the French. President Hollande was recently inaugurated as President of France a couple months ago. His first stop. First act of office for the French president is to come here and lay a wreath. That's under the Arch of Triumph, by the way. That's beautiful. And then we got into the act, something similar. This is the monument to the 1st Division. It's in Washington near the old Executive Office building. That's the old Executive Office building. And that's the 1st Division. We have an angel on top of the pillar there. It's one of my favorite memorials. It's eloquent in its way, and it honors every man who died in the 1st Division. It's well taken care of. They have a ceremony there every Memorial Day, every Veterans Day. The 1st Division is a very proud division. They take good care of themselves and their monuments. Okay, World War II. Oddly enough, heroism comes back. World War II, there were heroes, and we were really lucky to have these two guys. They got along with each other. They spoke the same language, and in some ways, the most important thing they did was. Oh, there we are. They have a memorial. That's in London. So there's a lot of this sort of art coming along now, just little street corner monuments. I think it's charming. It's somewhere in London. Anyway, the most important thing those two guys did was manage this gentleman here. They called him Uncle Joe in private, never to his face, the Generalissimo. This is an amazing photograph. I mean, FDR and the Prime Minister are having a little chat. Their officers are chummy. Now, did Ivan and Boris over here not get the memo that there was going to be a photograph? I guess not, and the Generalissimo was staring off into space. This was not an easy job managing this guy. But he needed a lot of management, and he needed all the help he could get, and he deserved it because of the appalling losses on the Russian front. So this is a Russian war memorial outside of Stalingrad. Now, let me give you an idea how big this is. Look at that. See the little? This thing is twice the size of the Statue of Liberty. Over twice the size. It's just enormous. And the losses on the Russian front were just appalling. 20 million people. It's just enormous.
Is that in Moscow or in Leningrad?
I think it's Stalingrad. I think it is outside of Stalingrad. But they've got. It's hard to. I'd love to go there and check it out because there's not an awful lot of stuff online about Russian memorials. There's some, but not nearly as much as one would like because I guess Americans just aren't going there and taking the pictures and putting them on the internet. But I'm pretty sure this is outside of Stalingrad.
Excuse me, what is that statue made out of?
You know, I don't know. It's an engineering marvel. Yeah, it's quite a piece of work. I would bet it's reinforced. It's probably a steel framework in there, and then they put the concrete around it. So I would guess reinforced concrete. It can't be marble. You know, you can't have marble holding up something like this. So I would guess that's reinforced steel. We have a World War II memorial, finally. It took a long time, but it always does. I mean, the whole process of what did this mean? How is it appropriate to remember this? It's never easy making these decisions. And legislatures, your average member of Congress and the Senate, they're more used to appropriations and budgets and they're not artists, they're not aestheticians.
Where is this?
This is in Washington. This is between, well, there's the Lincoln Memorial in the background. So the Washington Memorial is here. So that reflecting pool, that's been there forever. And this pool had been there, and they fixed this up and then added pillars and stakes and stuff. But to me, the best part of it, there's one quote in there that comes to greatness. Can you all read that? Okay. So who do you think said this? We are determined that before the sun sets on this terrible struggle, our flag will be recognized throughout the world as a symbol of freedom on the one hand and of overwhelming force on the other. So it's Lincoln again. It's the open hand, it's the olive branch and the arrows. That's what we're about. So that is George C. Marshall, General of the Armies, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. A great soldier and a great statesman. Then we get the Vietnam Memorial, beautiful piece of work, beautifully harmonized with the environment. The arms of the memorial are deliberately set out so you see the Washington Monument on the one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. It's a beautiful piece of work and people love it, people decorate it. So what could be just a forbidding, stark black monument becomes softened every day with the addition of all these wreaths and mementos, and well over 60,000 objects of value have been left at the wall by now, including a completely working mint condition motorcycle that was left with a note. All the stuff gets collected, put in a warehouse, and it gets put on display in one of the Smithsonian museums. They change the collection every few months, and it just keeps going. It hasn't even slowed down. I mean, people are still coming to this monument, leaving stuff. Notes to friends, photographs, etc. And the names. Okay, now we're into the contemporary era. So this is a memorial environment. We're getting into memorial environments now. We're not making statues. Modernity and statues just don't seem to go together. Has anyone ever seen a statue of a man in a business suit? Well, yeah, but it doesn't quite look right. I mean, FDR and Churchill, that looked good, but it was funny, and it was supposed to be. They're down there, life scale, not on a pedestal, sharing a park bench. I mean, if you make a statue out of me someday, please put me in something else. Who knows why? But everyone gets a chair. Okay, everyone's name is on a chair in this old environment where that building used to be. So they create a park, and there's a section of little chairs because you remember the bomb went off near the daycare center. So there's a bunch of little chairs with children's names on them. Terrorism. And then that's Flight 93 that went down in the field there, and a local University of California graduate, Mark Bingham, was one of the heroes of Flight 93. So it went down. So that's the flight path. So that's exactly where the plane nosed into the ground there. So again, we're getting entire environments, reflective environments, peaceful, like a cemetery. And there's the Pentagon, a brute of a building, plowed into that thing, and a year later it was fixed. And then there's a memorial, somewhat like the Oklahoma City. These are little benches. So you can go out there and have a seat, and there's a name under every bench. And then, of course, this famous, iconic scene of the towers and the victims by nation. See, I mean, terrorism, there's no boundaries. People from all over the world were burnt up in that building. And this is what we've come up with. I haven't been there. I can't wait to go. But these are the old footprints of the towers, which they've turned into pools with cascading water and trees. Exactly what New York City needs is a nice, calm, park-like space down there at the tip of Manhattan. And then there's the cascading water coming down, symbol of life. Okay, that's all my slides for today. Questions, comments? Yeah.
Am I correct on equestrian monument statues that the way the horse is standing position has a significance on how the person depicted passed away?
Yeah, great question. I think someone asks that every time I give this presentation, which just shows you how widespread that urban legend is. I think it's somewhat true in Europe that it's a tradition started there. But in the United States, for example, go to the White House and walk out in front and see old Andrew Jackson there on his horse and he's rearing back with his hat off. The horse is on two legs, and Andrew Jackson died in his sleep at home. He was not wounded in battle. I mean, the old idea is right. If the general is rearing up on a horse, he died in battle, and one hoof up means he was wounded in battle. It's inconsistent. Yeah, it is. Maybe in Europe there's something to it. I guess I should make this a research topic and see if I can find any case where it's actually true.
Well, any more questions? Well, Richard, thank you
Okay,
very
you're
much.
very welcome.
for being with us. That was a gift.